everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel that I know I have not uploaded anything on in like a million years. I'm living in London. I'm going to drama school. I've been really busy, but because coronavirus is now a thing now, I had nothing to do, so thought might as well do this, you know. Now, since I actually talked about this last, so much stuff has come out, and I feel like a lot of people now no longer believe Amber Heard, which is nice. Most of the people that are now shifting to Johnny's side that I've noticed have somehow fallen into this trap of victim blaming, saying that it's his fault that he fell in love with Amber in the first place, and I can go into a whole separate video about how wrong that is to say. But that is not why we are here today. I decided that I wanted to just point out some things from Brian's channel called Incredibly Average. If you have not listened to the audio, do that first before you watch this, because I'm not going to be including like clips of the audio in here. I'm just going to be reading some things that I wrote down and explaining to you guys why it is emotional abuse, because while Amber was definitely physically abusive, something that people never really seem to talk about is the emotional abuse side of it. And personally, I think that is far more damaging than physical abuse. I am by no means a psychologist. I do not have a degree. I am not a professional. I literally just got this stuff from sources on Google that I've been looking through for years. So that's where I'm getting this information from. Also, I myself have been through a lot of emotional abuse, but I'm not going to get into that because this video is not about me. I might compare like some of the stuff Amber says to stuff that people have said to me, but again, it's not about me. Please do not jump in the comments saying like, you know, oh, I'm so sorry you've been through that or whatever. I really hate when people do that because you're missing the point here. This is not about people who have wronged my life. Let's get into this. Basically what I've done is I've listened to the first audio recording. There are several. I will probably make a second video about the other audio. This audio itself is like an hour long. From what I got from it, pretty much everything she says can be considered emotional abuse, and so I obviously didn't write down everything because it's very repetitive, but I wrote down some things, and yeah, just gonna give some little opinions here. So the first thing we should do is define what emotional abuse is according to healthline.com. I've linked the article below if you want to read what like more details of what some of this stuff means, but I've written all of it down on this lovely piece of paper. The first thing is humiliation, negating, criticizing. They're like categories and they have subcategories. So examples of this category would be name calling, derogatory pet names, like saying, you know, oh, you're like a little chubby boy or something like that, as an example, if that's one they gave on the website. Amber calls Johnny a fat old man. She has done that before, just saying, but that's not part of the audio, I just, as an example. Character assassination, saying, you know, you always do this, or you never do this. Yelling, patronizing, public embarrassment, which more so falls in category of like arguing in public, which I don't think Amber and Johnny ever did necessarily, but public embarrassment on this level could also mean like her just going to the public about things. Dismissiveness, like if he has a problem with something, she just dismisses it. Joking, sarcasm, insults to your appearance, belittling, put downs of interest, and pushing buttons, which would be like, you know, just kind of like pushing him to get him to be angry about something. The second category is control and shame. So this includes stuff like threats, monitoring their whereabouts, which is something that's actually in the audio that I don't think I really touched on and stuff I wrote down, but she's pissed at him because he spent too much time at his friend's apartment. Being a digital spy, going through their phone. Unilateral decision making, financial control, lecturing, direct orders, outbursts, treating Johnny like a child. She calls him a baby several times. Feigned helplessness, pretending that she is completely helpless in the situation. Unpredictability, which she actually is aware that she does. She says several times, I don't know if I could control my anger. I don't know if I might lash out. It might happen. I don't know. Walking out. Using others as examples. Everybody does this. Nobody does this. Number 3 is accusing, blaming, and denial. So this stuff like jealousy, turning the tables, basically like saying, well, you did this and you did this. Denying the truth when it's presented to them. Using guilt, goading and then blaming. Denying abuse, trivializing or overreacting, saying that the person they're abusing is overreacting to what actually happened. Saying that the person they're abusing has no sense of humor about anything. Blaming you for their problems. Destroying and denying. Like you destroy their property and then you deny you destroyed their property. And the last category is neglect and isolation. So this is calling the person needy, interrupting them a lot, complete indifference towards anything they have to say, demanding respect from them, shutting down communication with anybody else, dehumanizing, preventing socialization with others, coming between the victim and their family, withholding affection, turning on you, working others against you, which is something Amber's clearly done, and disputing your feelings, saying, again, like you're overreacting, or that's not how you actually feel, or, you're not hurt, which is something Amber says. So keep that stuff in mind as I read you everything that I wrote down. It is 7 pages, but these are pretty small pieces of paper, so pretty chronological. So if you listen to the audio, these are all exact things that she said, and if it's not an exact quote, then I wrote like a paraphrase or just to sum up what she's doing, because sometimes she just lists things and I don't want to have to write out everything she's listing, because it's the same stuff over and over. Because that's also something that's quite abusive, I think, that I've realized. It's people just, if they're being abusive, they'll list all these things that you do wrong and then just keep listing them and just make things up, and it's not even necessarily true. The first thing, so these are some things she said. I want to trust you, and I feel like all the trust is gone in our relationship because you keep splitting. Now, the reason Amber is so pissed off in this audio is because Johnny keeps walking away from arguments when they get violent, or if she starts abusing him emotionally. He doesn't want to deal with that, as any normal person would not want to deal with that, but she's very pissed off that he keeps walking away for whatever reason. It's kind of hard to figure it out, other than the fact that she just wants to continue berating him. So she says that she can no longer trust him because he keeps walking away during arguments. Now, something that abusive people have said to me, again, not to get into too many details, but, saying that you can no longer trust, I've been told a lot, I'm untrustworthy simply because I'm not doing exactly what they want or saying exactly what they want, so that it can be classified as abuse. When Johnny says that she hit him, her response is, "What about all the other times you split?" Now this is her completely ignoring what he's saying. He's saying flat out, you hit me, you hurt me, and she's just completely ignoring it and saying, well, what about all the stuff you did? That's something emotionally abusive people do. They will pretend they can do no wrong. So if you say oh, you did this and it's wrong, then they tend to just bring up something that they think you did wrong and try to put the focus back on your wrongdoings rather than theirs. You hit back, so don't act like you don't participate. Johnny says, I pushed you. She says, I'm not going to get into the details of that fight. This is something that I've often experienced, where they will say specific things you did, but then the second you try to say, oh, well, but you also did this, or this is what actually happened, because she's saying, you hit me back, but he's saying, but no, I didn't, I pushed you off of me. They suddenly are just oh, I don't want to talk about that fight. I don't want to talk about it anymore. The second that you try to, point out what actually happened or what they actually did, they suddenly no longer want to talk about it because they know you're right. But Again, they don't want to ever be seen as doing something wrong. Now, Johnny clarifies what she means by splitting. So he says, when I split, do you mean go into another room? And she completely ignores this and just keeps talking over him. She never answers that question. I did not start screaming until you had said all this shit. If you poke an animal enough, and then she trails off. This is something that I have had emotionally abusive people do a lot. I didn't start doing this until you said all this shit. I didn't start yelling at you or physically attacking you until you said this. I get that if you provoke someone to a certain point, they'll get mad, but it doesn't sound like anything Johnny said was enough to provoke such a violent reaction involving her slamming a door into his head, because I think that's what this fight that they're referring to is about. She slammed a door into his head and punched him. No matter what somebody says to you, if you get physically violent with them, like, you're being abusive. But again, she's trying to justify her actions, saying like, well, you said this, therefore I have every right in the world to get violent with you. Now, this is one of her wonderful rants about how wonderful of a person she is. I have not said these things to you. I have not started the fight by saying I'm gonna get another room. And then she yells this. And I'm not gonna sit here and fight about Toronto anymore. Guess what? I let it go. I'm not talking about Toronto. There's a lot of things to break down here. First, her constantly saying, you know, I didn't do these things. Stop saying I did these things. And she's just shutting it down like, I didn't do this, I didn't do this, I didn't do this, even though she did. And the reason you know she did is because when she gets more upset and starts yelling at him is when she's saying, you know, I'm not going to talk about this, I'm not going to talk about Toronto, because she knows that if they do start talking about Toronto, he's going to make her look bad and she's going to have to admit that she did some sort of violence. So she wants to just not talk about that because she wants to still keep making herself look good and be like, it's not a big deal. I moved past Toronto. Why haven't you? I don't know what happened in Toronto, obviously, but I guess some sort of like physical fight happened in Toronto and she's moved past it. And she's like, you know, why haven't you moved past Toronto? Like, you're so hung up on these things. If she physically hurt him, of course he's not going to move past that. You never try to work it out. You never fight for me. And she just keeps listing things that he's never done. Then she says what he can do to make her happy. You can promise me you'll change so I can have a modicum of safety. I have a modicum of respect. Now, she's listing again things that he never does, and he's just this horrible person to her. And then she says that she needs this like net of safety, and what she means by that is not safety in that, you know, she does not feel safe in the relationship, like she's scared of him, but safety in that, you know, she needs to know this relationship is not, she's not going to break up with him, which is a bit suspicious because there's a lot of like suspicion that she only got with him to get money from him. And if she's now so terrified that this relationship is going to end, clearly it's because she's scared that she's going to lose all this like hard work and effort she's put into the relationship, which she does imply throughout the audio. She's going to lose her like money basically. And that's what she's most concerned about here, not really necessarily being with Johnny. And then she says she wants respect, which is also something that abusive people, specifically abusive parents, tend to say that you're not respecting me if you don't treat them like authority. And Johnny obviously isn't going to treat Amber like authority. And because he's not doing that, she does not feel respected. I've been at your side, and I have not been for removal. I'm talking about many months. I've been at your side for it all. Again, listing things that she has done and, you know, putting herself on this pedestal that she is working so hard to maintain this relationship while he has done nothing to put effort into. I have no consistency, no safety, no security. Again, she's scared that he's going to leave her, but she's putting it in a way that makes it sound like she's in danger. I stayed. That's tougher. That's stronger. I'm stronger. I mean, that pretty much speaks for itself. Johnny has not left her or broken up with her. He simply walked out of the room while she was being abusive. And to her, that is a crime for some reason. So she is trying to make Johnny feel bad about it by saying she's the stronger, tougher person and that he is weak for walking out. You made me be the bigger person every time and come to you and knock on the door. He says, I made you? And she says, yes, by default. She is trying to make it seem like he's forcing her to come to him, and he's forcing her to do this stuff and like yell at him and stuff like that. Like it's all his fault. And he questions it, and she's like, yeah, because you didn't come to me, so it's your fault. Which is very emotionally abusive, you know, blaming someone for something that is clearly not their fault. So then Johnny asks her, why are you here then? For the guy you don't trust or like? And Amber's response, I did not say I didn't like you. And then she starts listing her reasons why she likes him. He starts listing things that she has called him, like negative things, like untrustworthy and stuff like that. And then she starts twisting his words, which is abusive. When someone is listing out things, negative things that you've said about them that have hurt them, and then you start like twisting it around to make it seem like they're not hurtful, or that you're justifying why you said them in a way that doesn't make any sense, that is emotional abuse. Now, here she accuses Johnny of arguing with her, and he says, I'm not arguing with you. She says, oh yeah, but you had to pick it apart, meaning that he made a point of, you know, trying to like figure out what exactly she's saying. When he's trying to figure it out, it makes her seem like a negative person. Because of that, she's now offended and is like, well, you had to do that. You just had to pick apart what I'm saying, which is something emotionally abusive people tend to say. When he questions something she said or did, her response was, I don't want to do this. I don't want to fight. She doesn't answer his question. She just shuts it down saying, I don't want to do this. I'm done with this discussion. I no longer want to talk about this fight. So he brings up the very valid question of how come when I come up with a point, you don't want to answer it? And she gets really angry and says, what am I not answering? You interrupted me. And she recalls the conversation that literally just happened in a very twisted way to make her seem like the good guy, and like Johnny is interrupting her and not listening to her and like all this stuff, which if you listen to the conversation that literally just happened, is not what happens at all. But that is something emotionally abusive people tend to do. They will start reviewing like a conversation that just happened and will make it seem like they are victims of whatever is happening. So he says, I said because I love you. And she says, you said loved as a past tense, which he didn't. Again, if you listen. But again, she likes to twist his words to make it seem like no matter what he says, if it's anything positive about her, she likes to twist it to make it seem like he's saying something negative about her. Again, it's to make her seem like a victim and to make him feel bad for her and like he's messing something up, which is very, very emotionally damaging for people. If you're in like some sort of relationship and your partner is constantly twisting your words and making everything seem like it's your fault, that leads to a lot of emotional damage and trauma, which is what she is doing here. She says, I answered this 5 minutes ago. Now, this is something that I have dealt with too, where if you ask a question, they will say, oh, I already answered that, when, you know, they either didn't answer it or their answer was not clear enough. So you're asking again for them to clarify what they said. And instead of repeating what they said they already answered it because it's most likely like made up and they can't remember exactly what they said, so they don't want to repeat it. She keeps twisting everything he says and then negates it to make it seem like he is saying something horrible. And then she lists things that he doesn't do for her. Like, you know, he doesn't give her any security and stuff like that. Again, that's very abusive. Johnny asks, what do you mean I don't fight for you? And she says, everything I already explained. Meaning that she already gave him reasons why. And she's not going to do it again because she probably made them up and she can't exactly remember them. The other thing that this could be, maybe Johnny doesn't remember what she said, but she doesn't want to say it again because if she does say it and he understands it, he's going to start questioning her, which is definitely not what she wants. Emotionally abusive people never want you to question them. I don't throw pots. That's different. One does not negate the other. That's irrelevant. He's referring to Amber throwing pots at him, and she is not denying that she threw pots at him, but instead is saying, it doesn't matter what I do, This is about what you do, and it's completely irrelevant anything I do. No matter how extreme it is or how violent it is, it's irrelevant because this is about what you do to me. Yeah, that's pretty emotionally abusive, I'd say. He says something, and she says, I'm not saying that. You're saying that. You're putting words in my mouth. She's twisting what he's saying and making it seem like he's, exactly quoting her, exactly saying what she's saying. And she said, oh, I didn't say that. That's not an exact quote. You're making this up. See, you're a liar. That's something that abusive people have done with me a lot. I do also want to repeat again, when I say emotionally abusive people have done that to me, I am not trying to get pity or anything. I am simply just giving an example of other people that I know who are emotionally abusive who have said these exact same things. Instead of saying, oh, it's just fine that they're emotionally abusive because we know Amber's abusive, it's rather saying we know they're abusive and Amber's saying the same thing, therefore she is abusive. Okay, cool, let's talk about everything you do. So Johnny starts pointing out some of the things she's done wrong, such as throwing things at him and punching him and, things that you probably should confront a person about. And instead of, apologizing for it or admitting that it hurt him, she's just like, yeah, sure, I did that, but you've done everything wrong. We should talk about that instead. She doesn't want to admit to anything that she's ever done wrong. She doesn't want to confess to things that she has done because she wants to be seen as perfect and better than him. Why are you trying to justify who throws things based on whether or not you come knocking on the door? She's trying to bring it back to her central problem with him, which is him walking away from her and getting out of toxic situations. But she's saying, me throwing things has nothing to do with that. That's completely irrelevant. Why does me throwing things justify the fact that you want to get out of that situation? She's trying to make her behavior seem like it is, perfectly fine, and that he shouldn't be scared of it. If someone was hurling a pot at you, I think you'd want to get out of there, but she's trying to make it seem like he is being a coward. He's telling her to go listen to a tape of her lying, and she just says, no, you listen to the tape, which is very childish, first of all, to just be like, no, you go do that. Like she's also trying to make it seem like, he didn't listen to the tape correctly, he's wrong, it's his fault. Like I said, this is very repetitive. I know you want to live in a world where everyone says yes to you or doesn't criticize you. Again, she's making it seem like he's the one who wants to be perfect and he's the one who thinks he can do no wrong, but in reality he has done everything wrong. Again, this is something that emotionally abusive people have said to me. They think that, if you dare say one nice thing about yourself, you automatically think you're perfect. Or if you dare say, hey, I didn't mess up in this situation, it was you, they start saying, oh, well, you're perfect and you don't want anyone to criticize you and you think that, you can do nothing wrong. And that's a very, very toxic thing to say, because if you think that you are the good guy in the situation, but then you have someone who's yelling at you that you're not, that can be very damaging. Because if you think that you are the right person in the situation because you didn't get violent, but someone is yelling at you that you're not the right person in the situation and you're wrong, that again can be very, very emotionally damaging. I'll be honest with you. I'm sorry you don't want to be held accountable. She is saying that she's being honest and that she is very sorry. This is sarcasm. I'm very sorry that you don't want to be held accountable for your actions. When the ironic thing is, I think she's actually the one that does not want to be held accountable for her actions. Again, that's twisting it, and she's making it seem like he is the bad guy and he is the one being toxic and not, admitting to when he did wrong. This is just something stupid she says. When Johnny brings up, talk to Travis, who I assume is either a security guy or friends with them or something, and flat out lied to him, instead of admitting that she twisted the truth or lied to him, she just says, go fuck, go do it, go run away together, I don't care. Basically just insulting him, saying, you and Travis, you're so in love with each other and you should just go have sex with each other, run away, you should be in a relationship with Travis, simply because he is using it as an example, saying you lied to this person, and she doesn't want to admit that she lied to him, so instead she's saying that, oh, well, you and Travis must be in a relationship because you're such good friends with him, and, you know, you get why that's messed up. This next speech is quite long, so I'm going to read the whole thing and then break it down bit by bit. You created that. I have no part of that. I don't know what you're latched onto in your brain, what stray hairs have commingled or tangled in your brain to make you think you figured some sort of thing out, but this is not unusual for you. It's like almost every fight. I can pretty much guarantee you will find something you will manipulate and twist. This is what she's saying to him. Simply because he said that when he told Travis that she had punched him, she lied and said that she had not punched him. And she is getting so upset about this because I feel like she knows he's right, but of course she's not going to want to admit that he's right. She's saying that every single time they have a fight, he creates this scenario where he's the good guy and she's the bad guy. Every single scenario, he makes something up, and that some wiring in his brain has gone wrong to make him think that he has been like an absolute saint or something. Again, the ironic thing here is that's actually what she's doing. So in a way, she's kind of projecting herself onto him. So when he says, "You're just afraid of the truth," she screams at him, "What truth?" I do also want to remind everyone that throughout this entire thing, anything Johnny says is very calm, and she's the one freaking out. Because when someone is confronting you about something you did wrong, and you don't want to admit to it, you start freaking out because you know they're right, but you don't want them to be right. So that's why she starts screaming at him. And then here you get a taste of probably what these fights tend to be like. Every fight, there's a new thing you've convinced yourself is a lie, which is not what he's saying at all. He's saying that she lied to Travis about what happened. Not that, you know, something she said to him is a lie, but, you know, she just wants to, again, make it seem like it's his fault. And then she says, "I'm not sitting here and fighting with you about the fight that we had last night." Which is, I think the point of this whole discussion was for them to sit and work out what they were fighting about last night, but now she no longer wants to sit here and fight about what they had fought about last time. The reason that she no longer wants to sit here and fight is because she knows she's wrong, and Johnny is now confronting her about what she did and what she lied about. She doesn't want to admit to what she did, so she's just like, you know what, I don't want to fight about this. I'm done. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to fight. Which is something emotionally abusive people that I have had experience with tend to do a lot. If you start confronting them about something, they suddenly don't want to talk about it. But if it's them confronting you, they can talk about it all day. This is mocking. I know, come and save me, Travis to the rescue. Johnny gets pissed about this, obviously. Her, like, mocking him, basically saying, you know, oh, you're such a coward that you can't deal with me yourself. You have to have someone else come in and deal with me. You're, like, this big, strong man, but you can't deal with, like, a woman who's attacking you yourself. You have to have someone else come and help you. Like, you're such a coward. That's basically what that's saying. You sit there and call me a liar. You still haven't told me what lie it is. You do this every single time. He has told her what the lie is. He has told her that she lied to Travis, saying that she did not punch him when she clearly had. But to her, she doesn't want to, you know, listen to Johnny. She's not listening to anything he's saying. So she hasn't heard this lie. Because she isn't listening to him, he hasn't told her what this lie is, even though he has. It's just more reason for her to get angry at him and for her to criticize him, saying, you know, oh, you're calling me a liar, but you're not telling me why, even though he clearly is. I'm not talking to nobody, you go jerk him off. Again, you know, implying that talking about Travis because they're in love with each other or something. And Amber does not want to talk to anybody about anything that she did because she knows that she would get called out on it and she doesn't want to deal with that. You haven't told me what it is. You latch onto this every time. Again, saying that Johnny has not told her what she lied about, even though he clearly has told her. And then he says, like, you know, I told you to tell Travis, and she gets offended. Oh, you told me to do that. And then when he tries to explain, no, I'm like trying to, like, no, that's not what I meant. Like, you know, she just talks over him and keeps, you know, just berating him about whatever. He's trying to tell her what he means and what, you know, she's lying about, but she's clearly not listening to him. Now, this next thing is what everyone likes to, like, you know, put around as, like, proof that she is physically abusive to him, which it is. But on top of that, there is an emotional abuse layer to this that I think is very important, and kind of why I wanted to make this video. I didn't punch you. I'm sorry that I didn't hit you across the face in a proper slap, but I was hitting you. I was not punching you. Babe, you're not punched. This is something that when someone is physically abusive with you, and I have had experience, like a lot of experience with this, they try to downplay what they did. If you tell them you punched me, they will say, oh, I didn't punch you. I hit you. And, you know, you're overreacting. You're exaggerating what I did. So yes, she's admitting that she hit him, but at the same time, she's downplaying what she actually did because she's trying to make him seem like he's overreacting, over-exaggerating, and she's not abusive to him at all. She has never physically hurt him, and he is not hurt at all. Which, to be honest, the pain does not come from the actual, like, slap. I mean, obviously it can be painful, but that's not... The real pain comes from the reason behind the slap. So it doesn't really matter what she did to him physically. It's the reason that she did it is what is hurtful in this situation. Her downplaying what she did, saying, you know, I didn't hurt you at all, it doesn't even really matter to him what she did. She still hurt him because she slapped him or punched him or whatever she did, because it's the reason that she did it is what's hurtful. And then she starts mocking him again, saying, you know, I know you've been in a lot of fights, you've been around a long time, because he tells her, you know, don't tell me what it's like to be punched. You know, and she's like, oh yeah, well, you definitely know what it's like to be punched because you've just been punched so many times. Mocking him, downplaying it again. And then she gets annoyed. You didn't get punched, you got hit. Which just sums up, like, again, she's just completely downplaying what she did. It doesn't matter if she hit or punched him, she still physically assaulted him. And that's his point. She's trying to avoid that point by saying, you know, oh, I didn't punch you, I hit you. And like, she's trying to make this point of he's over-exaggerating rather than facing the point of you hit him. I'm sorry I hit you like this. I did not punch you. I did not fucking deck you. I was hitting you. I don't know what the motion of my actual hand was, but you're fine. I did not hurt you. I did not punch you. I was hitting you. All of this she is yelling at him, by the way. I'm saying it calmly because, you know, when someone says something very stupid, you tend to forget how stupid it is if they're yelling it, but if you say it calmly, you tend to realize how ridiculous it is. So the first thing she says, I'm sorry I hit you like this, but I did not punch you. This reminds me a lot, actually, of a time that a girl slapped me in school, and then 2 years later it was like, oh, I never hit you. I only hit you like this, and she slapped me again. But I don't think that's what happens here. But again, it's trying to downplay what she actually did. She's saying, I did not fucking deck you. As in, like, you know, oh, I didn't, like, deck you. I could have done so much worse to you. I could have done, like, all these other things, but I didn't do it. Therefore, like, you know, I'm not that violent. You're overreacting. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't, like, hit you in a perfect slap in the exact motion of my hand. I hit you in some way. But then she's saying, you're fine. I did not hurt you. I did not punch you. I was hitting you. Saying that he's perfectly fine, which she has no right to say whether or not he's perfectly fine because it's his body, and if he is hurt, he would know. She wouldn't know. So her saying, you know, you're fine, you're not hurt, that is really, really abusive and toxic to say to somebody who is feeling hurt. If someone comes up to you and says, oh, I broke my arm, you wouldn't just sit there and go, no, you didn't, you're fine. And you would try to help them and be like, oh, you broke your arm. Another example, someone accidentally knocks you over. You know, you wouldn't sit there, you wouldn't just say like, oh, you're fine, get up, you're fine. You would be like, oh my God, I knocked you over by accident. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to do that. You know, a sane person, but not like an abusive person. Clearly shows like, you know, she is being very toxic and abusive here by saying she didn't hurt him. When she clearly did, because he's confronting her about it, saying, you hurt me. And she's like, no, I didn't hurt you at all. Which is just such a ridiculous and horrible thing to say to somebody. She says something that he did that was pretty minor, and then she's like trying to make her seem like all high and mighty. Like, I'm not sitting here bitching about it, am I? You are. That's the difference between me and you. You're a fucking baby. You're such a baby. Grow the fuck up, Johnny. Basically calling him a coward. If you call anybody a coward for, you know, confronting you about hurting them, who is the toxic one in that situation? And then she starts being sarcastic and mocking him again. You did the right thing, the big thing. You know that? You know what? You're admirable. And she starts like, you know, basically saying, you're so admirable for, you know, getting out of that situation and, you know, not hitting back or yelling or anything. You're such a great person. You're so perfect. And she's like imitating him, basically saying like, you know, you're so perfect, aren't you? As if she's like trying to like convince him of this idea that he thinks he's perfect and he can do no wrong, which is again very emotionally damaging to continue to say that to somebody, because it does make them feel like they cause all the problems and that they are the problem and they need to change something about themselves and that there's something wrong with them. It can lead to you feeling like you are selfish or you are like this terrible person if someone keeps pushing this idea that you think you are. And then she starts, you know, giving another reason. You can sit here and call me names, but you get called a name, that's the last insult. You're a baby. You're a hypocrite. You don't do anything that you actually do. Doesn't make any sense, but that's what she says. You expect from people what you can't give them. Again, this is projection because this is what she is doing. She's saying that Johnny's calling her names, which he's not calling her any names. He said that she lied. He's not saying that she is a liar. He said you lied in this one specific situation. She, on the other hand, is calling him names. She's calling him a coward. She's calling him a baby. She's calling him a hypocrite. And, you know, that is clear projection. That she is saying, you know, you can sit here and call me names, but I don't get offended by it. But here she is getting offended by him saying one thing to her that she did wrong. Now, this next sentence I did actually post on Twitter, and it's something that I know Brian does touch on in his video, but I think we need to also really just bring some attention to this, which is she literally says to him, after she screams at him a bunch, she picks up some pills, and Johnny goes, what are you doing? And she says, I'm giving you a Xanax since this one seems to have worn off. If you don't know what Xanax is, it is like the most powerful anxiety medication that people who abuse drugs tend to abuse a lot because it basically gets rid of all anxiety you have. What's more concerning about this than just the fact that she's giving him Xanax, you know, is the fact that she says this one seems to have worn off, which is something that Brian didn't mention in his video that I don't feel like anyone's really mentioned, is her saying this one seems to have worn off, because it means she gave him Xanax before they sat down and had this conversation, which is concerning. If you look up the side effects of Xanax, one of them is memory loss, and a lot of the others are stuff like drowsiness, fatigue, dizziness. So if she is giving him Xanax, it's to put him in a like zen kind of state. If she gives him a lot, she could even say, oh, he's not remembering it properly because he was on Xanax. That could be something that she might be aware of. I'm not saying that's why she's doing it, but it could be something that she's completely aware of. The other thing is Xanax is a prescription drug. Now, chances are Johnny has probably been prescribed Xanax because he willingly takes it from her. He's just like, oh yeah, it probably has. But my question is, why is Amber the one giving him his prescriptions? He's a full-grown, functioning adult. My mom is on a lot of medications. The only reason that she does not give herself her medications is because she has Alzheimer's and tends to forget to take them. So my dad gives it to her instead. But he has a deal with doctors to give her the prescribed amount because he is a pharmacist and he knows what he's doing. If Johnny clearly does not have Alzheimer's, he does not have any sort of like, you know, disability where he needs care or like a nurse to like, you know, administer medicine to him, why is Amber giving him Xanax? Why is she the one giving him drugs? What has she told doctors to make them think that it's okay for her to be giving it to Johnny? Or what has she convinced Johnny of that he has for her to have to give it to him? It's also known that she has withheld certain medications for him, causing him to have severe withdrawal, which is something that can happen if you're on opiates. If she hurt him very badly, he was prescribed some sort of opiate drug. If he takes a lot of it, you can get addicted to that very easily. If she withheld it from him, then he would have gone into bad withdrawal. If you don't know like what opiate withdrawal is like, it is basically like having the flu with some other symptoms on top of it. You can Google that yourself. And it has been known that Johnny has abused drugs, but he has only said that he abuses drugs because calm his brain if he's having like a lot of anxiety, or if Amber is abusing him and he is like having emotional breakdowns because of her. Clearly he would start drinking or doing drugs from it if he has been known to do stuff like that in the past. So she might be taking advantage of his drug problem. And maybe she got him addicted to Xanax, because it is very easily to get addicted to. So that's why that sentence is just so concerning to me, is the fact she's saying, this one seems to have worn off. You know, take some more. We have no idea how much, like, she was really drugging him out, because she probably was. And he probably thought that it was for his own good, or that there was something mentally wrong with him, that he needed these drugs in order to just be sane, because she might have been making him feel like he wasn't sane. I think she would say to him and repeat, it's very possible. I mean, I have been through something similar. I have not abused drugs or alcohol or anything, but I have been through something similar where if a person keeps saying things about you that aren't necessarily true, eventually you start to believe it. If it's, you know, what you're constantly hearing every day. That was my little tangent of the day. Shall we continue? I can't blame myself entirely for going straight to the finish line at the first sign of stress yesterday. Again, she's blaming him, saying, you know, oh, it's not my fault that when you stressed me out slightly, I started getting violent. It's your fault for stressing me out. So then Johnny starts to explain what actually happened to her, saying, you know, you threw me out of the bedroom. I was sitting there watching TV and you threw me out. And she says, why wouldn't I if you were about to split? Blaming him for her throwing him out of his own bedroom. Another abusive thing. You know, she's still blaming him for things that are not his fault at all. I can't blame going to the finish line when that's always where you drive it. She is saying, like, you know, I can't blame myself for throwing things at you or punching you if that's where you caused me to go. If you piss me off so much by just existing or saying things or whatever he's doing, or leaving, I think is the main one, is him walking out of the room. It's not my fault if I get pissed. It's your fault for what you've done. Which, if you get physically violent with someone, it's your fault. I don't care what that person said to you. If you punch them, that is on you. You never resort to violence. And she starts listing some more things that he doesn't do. He's never there for her. He never comes back for her. He never, like, you know, again, just like all these problematic things about him. And when he mentions, like, you know, in Australia, like, we were having like a nice time and, like, you know, there was no fighting. He says, I wasn't being attacked. That's why we're having like a good time. And then she says, you know, now I haven't attacked you any different. I have not changed. I never attack you. Just because I have a complaint with you, with something you did, it's not an attack. So you kind of see this, like, you know, weird kind of transition she goes through here. First she's saying, I have not attacked you any different, and that she's attacked him before, and she does the same thing now. I have not changed. She's trying to push, at this point in the conversation, she's trying to push this idea that he's this different person now, and he's, like, completely changed, and now, you know, she's fighting for this relationship and he's not, and she's so upset about this. But then she realized, you know, oh shit, I kind of admitted that I've attacked him. So she says, I never attack you. I never attack you. I don't verbally attack you. I don't physically attack you. So she just says, just because I have a complaint with something that you've said or done, it's not an attack. But this is not a complaint. Punching somebody is not a complaint. Throwing something at someone is not a complaint. That is an attack. That is the definition of an attack. Again, Johnny is right. If you see any criticism as verbal assault, of course we have this problem. He's not getting offended at her criticizing him. In fact, throughout this entire conversation, she is criticizing him, and you don't see him getting, like, overly offended at her, or, like, you know, yelling back at her, like, how dare you criticize anything I do. Like, he's not doing that. But she's trying to twist it to make it seem like every time she has any little critique about it, anything he does, like, she says, like, oh, maybe you should do the dishes today because you never do the dishes, you know, she's saying, then Johnny says that he's being verbally assaulted. That's what she's making it sound like, which is clearly not true, because she's been verbally assaulting him throughout this entire conversation, and he has not really said anything back to her that has been unreasonable or like him getting very offended. He says, last night happened because I was at Isaac's for too long, which is what, you get to see really what she is so upset about. And then she said, no, it happened because we couldn't communicate. Again, trying to take the blame off of her and putting it back on him. It happened because you did this. I got mad at you because you decided to leave and go to Isaac's house or wherever he went. And then she says, I did not cause this because you were at Isaac's. You lie to yourself. She's saying he's lying to himself because she did not cause this issue. It's his fault. He caused it. But he's saying, no, you got upset at me because I was at a friend's house longer than you wanted me to be, which is very abusive. If your significant other is controlling where you're going and how long you're there and getting pissed if you're at like a place with somebody longer than they want you to be, that is one of the biggest signs that that's an abusive relationship and you need to get out of that. Just the fact that she's upset that he was at Isaac's at all for too long, longer than she approved of, I mean, that is so clearly abusive. And she's saying he's lying to himself about this. He's making this up to make him seem like a good guy, which clearly from this conversation is not true. You never admit anything you did wrong. And as, this conversation concludes, he does admit things that he has done wrong. The reason he hasn't admitted anything he's done wrong here is because he didn't do anything wrong here. I try to see the bigger picture. You lose the bigger picture every time. She's referring to their marriage. She's trying to see it as, oh, I'm trying to protect our marriage and I'm trying to, I'm just doing this for us. I'm, physically assaulting you for us. And he is losing that big picture. He refuses to see why she would get angry at him over anything. I mean, that's also pretty self-explanatory about why that's a messed up thing to say. Johnny asks her, do you think you instigate? And she says, I'm not talking about instigating, I'm talking about ending. Johnny asks her a clear-cut yes or no question. Do you think you start these issues? And she immediately is like, that doesn't matter. She doesn't answer the question. She just says, doesn't matter. I'm not talking about that. That's not what I'm referring to. I'm talking about ending the conversation. If she genuinely thinks she does not start these problems, and she genuinely believes that, she could just answer the question. Do you think you instigate? No. I feel like she knows she starts these fights, but if she were to admit that she knows she starts these fights, it would break down this wall that she is the authority and she has control and that she's this great person and, so of course she doesn't want to admit that she starts these fights, but if she says no, then that could start a whole other discussion of Johnny saying, you actually do, and then she's going to have to admit that she actually does. She is simply just taking the easy way out and saying, I'm not talking about that. Once again, she starts listing more things that he never does for her. Now, basically, the rest of this is just Johnny, promising to do things, and she doesn't really say much, but from what she does say, you don't want to admit it. By it is her always being the bigger person, and she just says, think about it. And then she keeps repeating, think about it, over and over and over again, just completely ignoring everything he's saying and just saying, think about it. You don't want to admit it, think about it. The fact that she's ignoring him is another sign that she's emotionally abusive, is he is listening, as he's trying to talk to her finally. He's communicating with her, but she won't listen. And so this whole argument about how they never can communicate is completely invalid because they are communicating, but she's not listening to him. So he gives an example of something Amber does that upsets him, and she just continues to talk over him. She says, I've gotten so much better about, yelling at you. And he says, you haven't gotten better, otherwise we wouldn't have had 3 physical fights in the past month. She doesn't deny having these physical fights, by the way. Instead, she says, I was talking about the yelling. That she's gotten better with the yelling, which she hasn't, because she has been yelling several times throughout this conversation. But she doesn't want to admit that she actually hasn't gotten better. She, instead of focusing on things she needs to improve and work on, she wants to focus on things that she's already improved. And will think she's already improved. Because to her, there's nothing she needs to work on. She doesn't want to work on things. She wants him to change rather than her, which is something that abusers tend to always want. It's never them that needs to change, it's always the victim that needs to change. If you really love me and care about me, please, and then she wants him to do what she's telling him to do. That's guilt tripping. You know, if you really loved me, if you really care about me, you would do what I say, you would do anything for me. That is like her guilt tripping him. And then he says, if things get physical, we have to separate, which is a reasonable thing to request. And she just immediately says, no, we don't. I mean, I do have the question of why she is so insistent on them never going into separate rooms if things start to get physical or violent. And it's probably because like she wouldn't be able to control him, and she wouldn't be able to continue to yell things at him if they separated. You have the added luxury of knowing that I mean it and that I'll be there because I show up. And then she lists all of the things that she does constantly that are so wonderful and great that he does not do and does not appreciate. What she's saying is that if they need to communicate, he has this luxury of knowing and trusting her that she'll always be there to communicate, and she does not have that luxury because she thinks that he will never show up to communicate, which probably is not true. But yeah, she's basically saying that he is untrustworthy again, and you know, calling him more names. Yeah, that's basically all the major things. The rest of the video is basically Johnny promising to do everything she's asking, and her not promising to do anything unless he changes first, which is something that abusive people tend to do, which they will be like, everything is your fault, and everything I do is a reaction to you. So if you change, then I'll change too. So yeah, what do we get from this? She's abusive, not just physically, but also emotionally. And I think much more emotionally than physically. Yes, she has punched him, thrown things at him, she chopped his finger off. But yeah, this is just one audio recording. Apparently there's many more that haven't been released yet. If you guys want me to do the other audio, I probably won't do the third one because Amber doesn't really say anything in that one. It's mostly Jerry Judge, which you should still listen to. I will link the audio that I'm referring to down below, and while you're there, you should watch all of the other videos on that channel. We're all in quarantine, we have plenty of time, you have no excuse not to watch them, because they are brilliant videos. And, you know, if you want even more reason, Johnny Depp's lawyer has admitted that they have watched these videos and realized things that they hadn't realized before watching them that have helped Johnny with his case. Though the person does not know Johnny, but Johnny does follow them on Instagram. And I think that says a lot. Thank you for watching. If you want to include more examples of how any of this stuff was emotionally abusive, because like I said, I am not a professional psychologist, so if you are, and you want to, you know, include some more things here, feel free. If you want to correct some of the stuff I'm saying, I, you know, love learning about psychology, and if I'm saying anything that's totally wrong, like, please tell me. You know, I like learning things. So, yeah, that's it. Go follow Johnny Depp on Instagram for some quality content. We're trying to get him as many followers as possible for the petty reason that the more followers he has, the larger the gap will be between him and Amber Heard's follower and supporter count. And since she buys a lot of her followers, we know it would just piss her off so much. So yeah, go follow Johnny Depp on Instagram just to be petty. And even if you don't really care what he's doing or what he's posting, just follow him. You know, just do it. You don't have to interact with his posts. Just give him a follow. It's always fun. We like being petty here. Okay, I'm gonna go now.